So most investors spend months finding the perfect property, but only a few minutes choosing the right person who manages it. Today, we're going to talk about one of those underrated parts of property investing, property management. Because the truth is simple, a great property manager can make you money, a bad one can cost you thousands. Welcome to the episode 5 of the Property Triangle. Today, I'm joined by two experienced property managers who deal with real challenges investors face every single day. I've got Lee Harley from KC Real Estate, who manages a large portfolio across Melbourne Southeast. And I've got Avi Gutta from House Keys and Real Estate, known for helping investors maximize their rental returns while protecting their assets. So guys, welcome to the Property Triangle. We'll start with the first question. Maybe let's start with a simple question first. Many investors think property management is just collecting rent and sending emails when something breaks. Lee, what does a property manager actually do behind the scenes?
There's actually quite a lot that they do behind the scenes. And I know there's a misconception they just sending emails on phone calls and collecting rent, but really there's a lot that they do. For instance, day to day, they are negotiating with their tradespeople, getting the right prices for works to be done.
Yep.
They also, looking after their tenants as well. If we look at the new laws that have come in, they spend a lot of time also doing safety checks and organizing those sorts of things. You've got things like VCAT. They might be going to VCAT, negotiating for the landlords at VCAT as well. Doing routine inspections, that's a big thing. It takes a lot of time. And with our agency, we do interviews with our tenants actually before they get approved for properties. So it's meeting and greeting tenants and really having a look whether they are the right fit for the property. So those are just a few things, but there is heaps more.
That's a lot. So, Avi, what's the biggest misconception investors have about property managers?
So, as you said before, investors may think we just collect the rent, but we do a lot of other things like a tenant screening. We'll find a good tenant, starts with any tenancy and a proper advertisement. And in rental screening also, tenant screening also, we do employment check, income check, and their rental history and everything. Then we take care of the property and well-being of the property, on-time, ongoing property maintenance, and follow rental laws and safety checks present. In Victoria, every property should have rental minimum standards. Mold, cleaning, smoke alarms, electrical and gas safety checks. So we'll take care of all those things and routine inspections. So practically we'll take care of the property, their property well-being and their financial well-being as well.
So in terms of the actual licensing part itself, right? Because obviously there's a lot of process we have to go to get license in real estate, especially becoming, diploma in property management as well. Yeah. What's the benefit of somebody self-managing versus getting a licensed property manager?
See, self-managing is also, I'm not saying no to self-managing. Some investors doing it. Most of people experience until some issue arises. Example, if they're paying rent, you getting the rent on time every day, no issues. But if they stop paying the rent or if they damage the property, I've seen so many people. Even recently, I got one property from Rock Bank. So tenant owner initially approached us. He asked, he's expecting 600 per week. But in the West, so many properties available. If you see any suburb, nearly, let's say Tarnit is famous, right? 1,200 properties available. And the same properties we leased out 2 years back for 600. The same property now going for 500 per week. So we told them, you're not going to get that much. So still they asked me to advertise for 600. We advertised it. Unfortunately, we couldn't find a good tenant. So they find somebody from social media or somewhere. So they put the tenant. And after, this was happened little time back. They paid only first month advance and bond. Then they stopped paying. So then he called me within 1 month, 2 months. He started calling. What do you want me to do? He's not paying the rent. So that's where the actual property manager help you, situation.
Because of course you've got the right processes in place and you know how to screen a particular tenant.
We know how to issue the notices as well. That's the main thing in Victoria. From December 2025, so many things changed. And you should know the notice periods as well. And when you're issuing the notice, especially for notice to vacate for rental arrears, you should know how many days you should calculate. It's not like a whole period you can't calculate. And there are so many ways. You have a different time frames and different way of providing the notice as well. So if they don't know all these things, they will be in big trouble.
Yeah. Okay. So Lee, what can go wrong if somebody is self-managing a property?
There's actually quite a lot that can go wrong, Arthur. I feel like a lot of private landlords will accidentally sort of break tenancy laws because they're just not aware of processes and procedures. For example, and Avi, you touched on it, it's not issuing the right paperwork. For example, a lease agreement is a legal document. If not done correctly, that can become null and void. And then obviously the owner can stand at risk of losing thousands from poor tenant selection to obviously not getting money on the property or tenant damages. The other thing that is also huge now in Victoria, and I touched on it before, it is those safety checks and minimum standards. A lot of private landlords aren't aware of all these changes. We just had some recent ones in November as well. So you can't actually advertise a property for rent.
Without being minimum.
Unless it meets those minimum standards. If they do, you could get huge penalties. I feel for every private landlord, it could be up to $11,000. So there is a lot that could go wrong.
No, absolutely. All right, let's be honest. Most investors will only realize, value of professional, property managers when something really goes wrong. So I want to ask both of you, what's the most expensive mistake you've come across, from your experience in the property management world? If you want to share maybe an example of that one, I'll start with you, Lee.
Okay, so a quick one would be poor tenant selection. We've done a takeover. Initially, the owner didn't want to sign on with us because our fees was naturally higher than the other agent. They went there, the agent had put a tenant in, the property hasn't done correct checks. Turns out the tenant was actually drug addicted. So it costed him thousands of dollars. He eventually came back to us. We had to get repossession of the property, go to VCAT, and every single bedroom, the carpets had to be ripped up, paint had to be redone. There was even dog feces on the bedroom floors. So the property, once cleaned up, 3 skip bins, it costed over $30,000 for that landlord. Luckily, they had landlord insurance. So can you imagine if they didn't, what would have happened?
Yeah. Wow.
Some people actually, they don't have landlord insurance as well. So many people are facing that. I had one, they're self-managing. So they came to me after 3 months, he stopped paying rent in Officer Southeast Suburb. So after 6 months, it took us a very long time to vacate the tenant. Even we follow after the rules, but initially he waited 3 months, then we don't have a rental agreement, no documents, nothing. He just met somewhere in social media, he just put somebody in there because he's paying more rent. He said in text message, he showed me the initial text message saying that me and my wife working 70,000 for each, this and that, I'm happy to pay even $50 more and that. So he paid, I think some months or a year paid. After that, stopped paying, and 6 months it took us to vacate the tenant. And again, same damages. He damaged full households, doors damaged, and toilets. He did the shower. Shaving everywhere. It's like a clogged toilets. Fly screens damaged, glass damages. So many things.
No, one of the biggest fears investors have is choosing the wrong tenant. So what does a proper tenant screening process looks like? I'll start with you, Avi.
So initial to start with proper advertisement, real estate and domain and all other websites, mainly real estate and domain, the other also, okay? So after that, once we do frequent inspections, open inspections, and in tenants, we can check, full names, their driving license matches, up-to-date documents, Then their incomes. Main thing, in my opinion, incomes and rental history is the main biggest thing. If you don't proper check with their employer or previous agency, so you will be struck with bad tenant. And when you say people in rental history, most of people, what they do, I'm not saying they don't stay with their parents, but if 40 years old, 50 years, they still mention they're staying with the parents. And the parents also, we can't validate that rental history. But what I'm trying to say is we should have a proper income. at least risk management. We need to do that. What's the percentage? At least they could afford the rent, and if they have a good rental income, then it will be a good tenant.
Yeah, perfect. And Lee, you mentioned you've got like a tenant interview process, before you put somebody in. What are some of the biggest red flags that you would look out for when doing those interviews? Yeah.
I guess it's also prior to doing those interviews. It's inconsistent information that they put down on those applications. So they could put employment details, but then their payslip shows something else.
Yeah.
Or they could tell you, I earn 100K, but then their payslip shows only 50K. So it's all those little things, even previous landlord details, they could put, incorrect information there. And it's usually a sign that it's either fraud or they're trying to hide poor rental history. And then the other thing is obviously, as you mentioned, Avi, it's being able to afford the property. So as a guideline, most property managers work off that the rent can't be 30 to 35% more than what they earn.
Yep.
So you're looking for things in previous rental history, as in rent arrears or negative feedback from landlords.
Yep.
Us, for instance, when we are doing those interviews, we ask them almost the same questions than what was on the application. Sometimes they come up with different answers.
Yes.
You get really professional renters out there. They know how to scam it. So you kind of need to be like a private investigator, really.
Correct.
Dig deep and look for those answers. And also read body language, I guess. That's a big thing. So I feel like property managers are so much. They're like lawyers, investigators, they everything in between.
Yeah.
And recently I noticed one more thing. In case if I'm facing a very bad tenant, experience with a very bad tenant, when they apply to different property, they are giving good reference to get rid of the tenant.
Oh,
Yeah.
You only came to know once you see their routine inspection and rental ledger.
Got it.
If you don't see both two, then sometimes, not every time, but I noticed recently one.
Yeah, the story doesn't add up.
But that's why it's so important to jump on the phone with a previous agent and ask them because they do want to get rid of bad tenants. But that's why we also look at previous routine inspections, because then you can see, you actually don't look after the property, so we're not putting you in.
The problem, some people, they don't give bad reference. They simply sit silent.
Avoid it.
The problem is if you give them bad reference, somehow some agent, I am not getting the house. He might say you got a bad reference. Some people say we shouldn't be disclosing any information to them, but then they call the present agent, and that's the reason.
Yeah,
they don't provide any information.
Yeah, all right. That. Some of these areas, like, you would not see, like, watching from the sidelines, and, when you're comparing sort of one management company to the other, it's just like, they're all the same, but they're not, because the processes are so different as well. Yeah. All right. Maintenance is another area where a lot of investors really struggle. Some investors try to delay repairs, to save money and to save cash flow, but in reality, it can cost a lot more in future. So, Lee, how do you balance keeping the tenants happy and protecting the investors at the same time?
Initially for us, Arpit, it is in that interview where we are sort of letting the tenants know what their responsibilities are, our maintenance procedure as well. And it's also letting them know that you're not always going to have every request approved. But building relationships with tenants and with our owners as well as our tradespeople helps for that process to be a lot smoother. And it is advising tenants that they need to report maintenance early. For example, a leak in a shower not reported can then end up in the owner having to replace the whole bathroom. So it is reporting maintenance early. It is also letting tenants know the time frame of getting things done so they don't get frustrated.
Correct.
But also the property manager being proactive and replying to the emails or calls. That way you keep them happy. You keep the owners happy when you are looking after them in terms of reliable tradespeople that you can trust. They're not going to overcharge them. For instance, our tradespeople, we've worked with 6 to 7 years. So they give us good quotes as well. So it's keeping them happy and providing several quotes as well to make sure that they're paying the best money for it.
Interesting. All right. And Avi, what's one maintenance issue that investors should never ignore?
Any leak, like tap leak, roof leak, toilet leak, shower leak, anything is a leak and electrical issues, gas issues, because it's a major thing. See, if it's a roof leaking, small thing, they may think, but it's a all the roofs may collapse. I've noticed one in property. Initially, we see very similar dot on the roof, and after a few months, a full roof collapsed.
Yeah.
So he ended up paying with so much money. So never neglect any leaks or any electrical or gas issues.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Yep. All right. So property management also is just not about, avoiding problems, but it's also about maximizing income as well. So Avi, what strategies do great property managers use to increase the rental returns?
So when we advertise the properties, we'll check the recent comparables and we'll advertise the fair rent. So that's the main thing to get more. And once the tenant in, we'll take care of the property. We'll check the maintenance, property condition. And if there's any maintenance, we'll inform the owner, we'll get them done. And follow the rental laws. And that's where your property will maintain all the time. And if it's not this tenant, and next time also, we follow the fair rent, I mean to say, it will always improve the value. You never end up paying so much money to repairs.
Yeah, makes sense. And Lee, when should investors really consider increasing rents?
They should consider doing so if the market suggests for them to do so. Like if comparable properties are achieving higher, it would then be a good time. And a good time would be at least renewal, so it's less disruptive for the tenant. That way they can get a notice period as well. Again, we're coming back to communication and relationships with those tenants. Also, if rent has been below market value for some time, owners like to do that if they want to keep a tenant in their property, they're happy with the tenant, obviously reducing that vacancy period. But then gradually over time, you need to close that gap, and then that would be a good time to bring it up to market value. If they've done improvements as well on the property, landscaping or done complete painting or renovations, it would be a good time then to increase rent.
Absolutely. Also, as sort of Avi touched upon, it's also about the number of stock that is available on the market as well. Because sometimes that, if the pressure cooker effect is not there, then if there's, not multiple sort of, applicants are not applying for the same property, that shows that there's softness in terms of the demand. So I think that probably plays a part as well.
These rent increases, if you see throughout Melbourne, because we manage properties from big stretch, Traralgon to Melton, I've noted Southeastern is good. You can increase the rent. But if you go to West, Tarnit, Wyndham Vale, Melton, if you see so many new suburbs came now. And property rent price actually going down, not going up.
Because of the supply.
And presently from last year, we need to give them a 90 days notice for rent increase. That's also, it shows like we need to start the process 4 months before. If it's 12 months lease, and you will see it's like a quickly we're doing the rent increase as well.
I think that's definitely something to consider even when people are looking to invest into properties. These things like, the rental vacancies and the demand for rental properties and the consistent rent increases is so important as well. If you want to create that sustainable property portfolio, you want that rental income to increase over the period of time as well. All right, this is gonna be the fun part. We're gonna bust a few myths. So I'm gonna throw a statement at you, and then you can bust that particular myth. So I'll start with you, Lee. Property managers just collect rent.
Oh, that's so false. So false for so many reasons.
I think you mentioned and you covered that in your sort of first question that you answered as well, wearing multiple hats. And it goes for a lot of professions, actually. It's not just, the title. These days, a lot of roles are hybrid. People sort of, touched upon different things. So, sometimes you would act in their interest as a buyer's agent as well, if it's a property investor, working. But you mentioned lawyer, you mentioned private investigator. So absolutely. All right, Avi, self-managing saves money.
No. You end up paying more actually.
Absolutely. So with the tenancy laws in Victoria changing, as well as if you skip a step or if you get a bad tenant and if you don't get any rent, then a lot of issues. All right. All property managers provide the same service.
False. So false. We look the same on paper, but really we are very, very different. And I guess, Avi, you can see that once you take over management from other agents,
Correct.
that you
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
so not the same.
That's where you compare, right? Yeah. And like it comes down to the service, and again, this is the challenge with the service industries as well. Like, when a new client approaches you, they always judge you based on the price, but then they've got no way to quantify the service until they experience a level of service. And if it's
Correct.
bad, then they always then they don't look at price, then they look at service. But it's always the starting point is always, what's your, rates, fees and charges.
Yeah.
All right. Avi, tenants always prefer private landlords.
Yeah, why they choose? Because they're not getting property through agency, which means they don't have a rental history or no proper income, or they easily get from somewhere in a social media or outside platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about a real example. Tell us about a property you took over where the previous management wasn't working and what changed once you stepped in. So maybe we'll start with you, Lee.
Okay, so toward the end of last year, we had someone approach us. The guy was so distraught. He was very stressed. He's like, Lee, I'm not hearing back from my property manager. I don't even know if there's a tenant in my property. Last I heard, the tenant was vacating and they were doing a tenant transfer. Absolutely no communication at all. I then went and took over the file from the agent, and it was very hard to get hold of them. So it seemed to have been an agent who just does sort of email communication. So there were trails of emails, lots of things got missed. And so we kind of just went back to old school property management, getting on the phone.
Yeah.
I obviously hunt down the agent, spoke to them on the phone. When we took over the file, it was as easy as picking up the phone to call the tenant, to give them the new lease agreement to sign, giving them banking details, and us actually picking up the phone to the landlord every day. Hey, look, this is what we've done. This is currently happening. This is our action plan.
Yeah.
We got that sorted within a week, whereas he was having issues with a previous agent for weeks on end.
Yeah.
He was so thankful. We got a little present from him to say thank you. And it's really something as small as communication.
Correct. Yeah. No, it plays a big part. It's simple things, but communication goes a long way. Avi, do you have any examples where you took over a file for someone?
Yeah, I took over like 3 years back on property. They are actually with a good agency. They're actually good, I know, but somehow they couldn't able to vacate the tenant.
Yeah.
So after some time, they contact me, and I took other management from the agency.
Yeah.
And they were, by the time it was like 3 months in arrears. So I gave them because the problem is they struck the notice because they didn't give the proper notice to the tenant, notice to vacate.
Yeah.
So that's where they contact me. I followed few other steps, give them proper notice period and everything, even though it took us 2 months to vacate the tenant.
Yeah.
So they were happy end of the day. But yeah, I mean, that's where main rental laws and notice periods, we should follow how to produce the notice as well.
Yeah.
If they are not consent to your email, you cannot do that. You should provide only the postal.
Yeah.
So that's where they missed the part. They did everything good, but he didn't consent for the electronic communication.
Yeah.
So they send only electronic communication, but Jed checked in the rental agreement. It's not ticked.
Yeah.
So the case struck.
And does the size of the property management agency matter? Because they're obviously, big agencies, maybe, with thousands of rent roll versus a boutique one. Does it actually make a difference?
I don't think so, to be honest. It's your process as you follow as an agency and looking at day to day for your property management team, what they are actually doing.
Yeah.
So if they're managing too much, you need to then get another property manager.
Correct.
But I don't think it's the rent roll size that matters. It's really how they work day to day and processes that they follow.
Yeah.
I experienced, this is like a real my life story.
Yeah.
It's nearly, I started from one property. Now we come to so many properties. Initially, we'll get most of leads from your friend circle or buyer, seller, you close friends kind of thing, close circle. So that time you actually give them more personalized service.
Yes, absolutely.
But once you're growing, let's say you can't compare with somebody who have 10 properties, somebody dealing with 1,000 properties.
Correct. Yeah.
So they have a different communication levels is different because they need to contact the office. Staff will answer.
Correct.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying the process.
Yeah.
Whereas 10 properties guy, you can simply call the person directly.
Correct.
He may get quicker response. But everybody follow once you grow, they have a procedures in place. They
Correct.
have a leasing
Protocol.
agent.
Yeah.
They have a somebody. I do it in a task-based management.
Yeah.
So somebody do it in different way. Even Lee experienced very good response from them recently. So they have accounts is different person.
Yeah.
And hand over the documents different person. Everything happen in one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some agencies, even big or small, it's a person who's managing.
Yeah.
Person maybe business development manager.
Yes.
Has all the control.
Yeah.
But maybe big agencies may face the issue. It's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Because when you do on your own, example, I do my own.
Yeah.
Even 100 properties, 200 properties, I manage.
Yeah.
If one property, if an investor moved out to the property,
Yeah.
I lose money or
Yeah.
I lose business.
Sure. Yeah.
But if it's a big company,
Yeah.
they hire somebody from outside.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're irresponsible.
Yeah.
They can't work 24 hours. You
Okay.
cannot expect
Yeah.
them. I can answer if you call me 7:30, you call me 9
Yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah.
But they can't answer.
Yeah.
After 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
they're done.
Okay.
That's where maybe people feel that little difference.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
think it's everything same in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna do some rapid fire, some quick rapid fires. I'm gonna have a obviously statement, and you have to answer in one sentence as well. All right. So I'll start with you, Lee. Biggest landlord mistake.
Choosing an agent based on fees.
Lovely, like that. Worst tenant story.
Rental arrears.
Okay. Yeah. One thing investors should always do.
They should always treat their investment property as a business and look after maintenance quickly, not leaving it.
Love it. Yes. One thing investors should never do.
Self-management.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one.
Best way to keep the tenants long term in the property.
It's communication, being responsive to their request,
Yeah.
making them feel seen and heard and valued and respected.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So if there is one takeaway from today's episode, it's this. Buying a great property is only the beginning. The right property manager is what protects your investments for the next 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years. Thanks to Lee and thanks to Avi for sharing their insights. And if you are an investor, looking to build a strong property portfolio, make sure you surround yourself with the right team. Thank you. Episode 5. Cheers.
Thank you.